Hello, Beverly.
Hey,
Hi,
Liz.
we're in person. Look at this.
Yeah.
So I think something brought us here together today, other than the Lord. He did it for sure.
Most
But
definitely.
this book that Beverly wrote. So we thought long and hard about how we wanted to launch this book. By we, I mean Beverly, the author. And we decided that in person would be great because Miss Beverly thought that driving 12 hours to make it happen would not be a problem. So here we are.
Yeah.
So, Beverly, this
Something's
book,
happened and you just, you don't like really think ahead that this is what you're going to do, but it just happened this way. And I'm glad it did.
I know,
I'm
me
glad it happened
too.
this
It's
way.
amazing. I can't believe you're here. I still am like, oh my goodness, you're here. Here being we're right now in Fuquay Varina, North Carolina, but Beverly is visiting Holly Springs, North Carolina, where my family and I
It's
live.
a beautiful place, by the way. It's so gorgeous.
Yeah, I'm trying to get her to move here. But anyway, so we're here to talk about this book. So, Beverly, you wrote a book, 101 Questions to Ask Jesus.
Yes.
So I think we're going to spend a little time together just kind of talking through the book over the next few videos that you all will see. And I would love to just kind of like hear a little bit more right now about what inspired you to write this book and, just kind of what your hope is for this book, that people will be reading this book and what they'll experience. And
Okay, well, what inspired me to write the book? Over the years in my traveling, I find myself on the plane and, you're on the plane and you're just kind of bored and you're just like, lots of thoughts are going through your head. And I don't know about you, but whenever I'm traveling, I just watch people and I think about life. And so I made it a habit to carry with me a little journal book, one of those little black and white ones that looks like cow print on the front. And it was just a little book about this big. And so over the last several years, I've been making little notes in there, just questions that, questions that I just want to seek God for answers for. And so I remember making a little jot note in there that said, 101 questions to ask Jesus. And I remember thinking when I first started doing that, this might make a good book someday. But that's been probably at least 10 years ago.
wow.
Yeah, at least 10 years ago.
Wow.
So I just started making little notes, and when a question would come up in my head, I'd pull it out of my purse and I'd make a little note. And so I forgot all about this little journal book until right around December of 2020. And I was in California trying to close down a storage unit. And one of my friends was helping me go through boxes of stuff, and the little book fell out. And she picked it up and she started looking at it. And her name is Iris, by the way. Hi, Iris.
Hi, Iris.
And she looked in there and she started laughing. She said, 101 questions to ask Jesus. And she kind of chuckled. She goes, I think you might want to keep this. And she gave it to me. And so that's when it triggered in my mind, I probably should finish this.
Yeah.
Because after 2020, there are a whole lot of questions.
Yep.
A whole lot of things happen that we just need to seek God for. And
Yeah.
I feel like the answers are in God and not in us. So that's really the inspiration. That's really what caused me to write the book.
Awesome. I love that.
Yeah.
So 10 years of questions.
Yeah.
And this is what you actually went with, but you had lots more questions probably. So these are the kind of like the ones that you felt that the most people would be able to connect to that you had thought of. That's awesome. We can't wait to talk more about what's in this little book here. Question 2 of this interview about your new book, 101 Questions to Ask Jesus. So we talked a minute ago, back over there, about what inspired you to write the book, what you hope people would get from writing this book. And I don't think we kind of got to you finishing that answer of what you wanted people to kind of get out of this book. So I'd love to start there. And then I have another question for you.
All right, sure. So I figured if I came up with 101 questions to ask Jesus, there are people who also have questions on their mind for the Lord also. I mean, I feel like, in today's world, in many ways, we don't want to go and ask the pastor a question because we don't want to insult him. Like, I don't understand what just happened, or I don't, there are a lot of things that happen, and we don't necessarily, we think the question, but we don't really kind of flesh it out. So I really hope that what this book will do will just inspire people to think about what's really on their mind and heart, maybe actually ask their own questions and seek the answers from the Lord. Because I'm at this age now where I feel like, life is short. 2020 taught me that. We lost, 500 and some thousand people, not 500 people, but not 5,000 people, but 500,000 people. That's a lot of people in one country to leave the planet. I mean, and so I'm very conscious that no one knows the day or the hour. And I just feel that we need to resolve the question of eternity while we still can.
Yeah.
That's really what I want people to do, is take this book, be inspired to ask questions, to get together, to talk together, to ask your spiritual leaders questions, and to really know where you're going to go when you leave this place.
I love that. I think that's the question on a lot of our minds and hearts, especially as we face things like this last year. And, we're in 2021 now, but it just feels kind of like a continuation of 2020, right? So
yes, it does.
It's not over like we all hoped it would be, I think, this pandemic that we're in and everything that we've been facing as a country and as a world. So, I love that. And I definitely got that from reading your book. I definitely felt like my mind was kind of like inspired to think through, like, not only your questions, but to kind of take those sometimes a little bit farther on my own. And we've spent some time talking about that too. So, what is your favorite chapter? Or not just chapter, it could be your favorite part of the book, your favorite, I don't know, something you had a lot of fun writing, or even like your favorite question or the biggest question that you had maybe in this book. A lot of, I know that's like weighted, there's a lot to that, but if you had to pick just one thing.
I think that's a difficult question to ask, but the first, you said you wanted the first thing that popped in my mind? The first thing that popped in my mind is the question that I asked when I asked Jesus, why did you allow me to fall in love with someone and for us to only be together for 9 months and 3 days? And I think the reason that pops up is because I don't feel like he has completed his answer to me. I think he's slowly given me revelation over time, because my husband's name was Steve, and I have sort of a dedication to him in the book. And I feel like since Steve passed away in 2016, God has sort of opened my understanding like blooming a rose, like more and more I understand more. But I think that's probably a very important part of the book. I can't say it's just like my absolute favorite question given the title, but that question is an important question in my life. And and so I had to write about that, because I feel like there are other women who have lost their significant other, and they may have questions about why God chose to take them, And so I feel like someone may actually connect to it. Connect to the story.
Well, I did, and I think just being your friend and knowing you for years, and knowing a little piece of that story and getting to read a little bit more in your book, I think helped me to connect to you more. But I agree that I think there are people that experience these things, that you've experienced, and will connect on a really deep and personal level, and it might even help them to connect with the Lord.
I want to say something else really quick about that, because I've heard many people say, like, when their child dies, especially if they lose a child, because the child just started in life, or if their husband dies or their wife dies, or some traumatic thing happens, And sometimes people struggle with their faith in that. They're like, well, God's not with me. Well, God doesn't love me, and how could he do this to me, And I have to say, honestly, even though I struggled with the loss of Steve and the loss of him so quickly, I never ever said, I just want to walk away from God.
Mm-hmm.
God doesn't love me. God doesn't exist. I think that's the worst thing anyone could ever do. The question that has to happen is, God, why? He said to ask. So I spend a lot of time just asking God the questions, trying to get to a place of peace with it, because God sees and knows all things,
right?
And so I just wanted to throw that in there, because if there is someone who is struggling with the loss of a loved one, especially now after 2020, you could, especially if they lost a child during 2020 due to COVID-19, they may be saying, how could God let this happen to me? What did I do wrong? And it's not like that. I mean, I just feel like when terrible things happen, the very first place you need to go is cling to God. You can let some other stuff go, but don't ever let God go. So I just wanted to say that.
I love that. And that is probably the hardest thing for people, is to run to the Lord when something like awful happens in their life. It's the I think probably one of the hardest, if not the hardest thing to do, because you feel like you're running to the person who is in control of the whole situation and still let it happen. But God is love, and he doesn't want his children to be hurt, and so he's there for us. Okay, I don't want to put you on the spot. But you mentioned
you did.
But you mentioned I know just saying that means you're on the spot. But you mentioned 9 months and 3 days.
Yes.
And you wrote a song called 9 months and 3 days. Would you maybe sing just like a little part of that song for us?
Okay, let's see. You caught me when I'm all kind of already sort of choked up.
We can pause it and start again.
Maybe it'll be more natural this way. Anyway, I'll try to do it.
All right.
May not be the best rendition, but anyway. Okay, so it goes like this. The night I fell in love with hazel eyes, you ask me what my heart desires. Faithful, godly love, coming from the Father of lights. I think I saw a tear. And now I forgot the words.
That was amazing. Seriously.
Anyway,
that was beautiful.
I skip to the other part. When I get thrown on the spot, I can't even remember my own words.
I think we all enjoyed it.
But I'll go to the chorus, because you need to hear the chorus. Okay. You won my heart. You stood by me, you held my hand, you fought for me, I stood by you until your last breath. 9 months and 3 days is not enough time to love you.
Oh my gosh, Beverly. That's
okay,
beautiful. I know. Okay, we're stopping. Cut. I feel like I should have recorded that whole conversation we just had, because I feel like that would have added value. We were just talking about how releasing something you love into the world is hard, and you sometimes don't know if people are going to care about it or be excited about it, but I'm excited.
It's like as an artist, you just feel exposed whenever you release something you wrote, like a song, a poem, or even this book. You just feel like, I feel exposed, and what if people don't like it, and what if, you know, and so, there's a great big bumblebee behind us.
I think it's a carpenter bee.
Okay.
I am not wood, so it shouldn't want to eat me.
Anyway, so that's the thing. I feel uncomfortable, but this is my legacy and I have to just go for it.
Yeah. Well, I love that you did. We're going to try to work with this bee that's hovering around us right now. But hey, this is why we're doing this, right? Real life, authenticity, like here we are.
Here it is.
Train in the background, people playing on it. Like, let's do this. So we've been talking about your book, and I would love to hear a little bit about, I know you mentioned this in your book, but about the cover photo. If you can kind of see the cover photo.
Sure.
Okay. And then after you tell us maybe a little bit about that, I thought maybe you could read us an excerpt from your foreword, or the whole foreword, just to kind of give some context to kind of how this beautiful book starts.
Okay, sure. Thank you, Liz. So basically this cover is a combination of two pictures that I took. One picture is taken in, those of you who are in California, especially if you're in the Monterey County area, you probably recognize this as Pacific Grove, okay, with the rocks and the surf and everything. That whole thing was taken in Pacific Grove. This part in the sky here with the light and the tree is actually taken up in Kashawa, in Upper Carmel Valley. And what happened there is just that part from Kashawa, what happened is I was driving up the mountain. I used to live up there. And as I got up the mountain, I was looking in the sky and I saw two lights. There was the sun, and then there was another light. And I was like, that's odd. So I pulled over to look at it closer, and when I pulled over to look at it closer, I could clearly see that on this side, that's the sun, because you can't really look directly at it, right? But then on this side, there was this light that is, you can kind of see that it's yellow and orange, and it was like a ball of color, yellow and orange and pink. It was, wow. I couldn't understand what I was looking at, whether it was a reflection or what. So inside the book, you'll see two pictures, even though the picture is in black and white.
You have to buy the book, though, to see it up close.
Yeah.
Page 7.
The pictures are in black and white in the book, but you could clearly see that there's two lights in the sky. Mm-hmm. And I was like, what am I looking at right now, Lord? I don't know what this is. And as I actually took a little video clip of it too, maybe at some point, if I still can find that, I might upload that. And
that'd be great.
Slowly, the orange yellow light in the sky, it's almost like I was staring at it, and it was like, oh, she's watching me, and it slowly started to dissolve.
Wow.
And then it just it was changing colors, and then it went away. And I was like, what did I just look at? I still don't know what that was.
Wow.
There's, like I say, and I mentioned this in the book, there are a lot of things that happen in our world. We have no clue what's going on.
Right. Yeah.
We don't know what's happening.
What made you choose that picture for the cover?
Well, first of all, because I love Pacific Grove. And I love Monterey County. And secondly, that light in the sky is also a question. Like, Lord, what is this? It's like the bonus question.
Yeah.
What is this, Lord? So it's
That's awesome.
It's a question to ask Jesus too. What is that? What are these lights that we see in the sky that we can't understand?
Yeah, that's great. Okay, so let's jump to this forward, and then we'll take a little break and come back.
All right. You're going to go for a commercial break?
We're going to go for a commercial break. Location relocation break. Yeah, relocation break.
Okay. So what would you like for me to read?
I would love to hear maybe just like the first half of the foreword, wherever you feel comfortable kind of ending it, because I feel like it's just, it's a nice way to give your fans and viewers a kind of a little sneak peek into how you open your book.
Nice, I have fans. That'd be nice.
It's Beverly Rivers.
So I'm going to read this. It says, when we were children, our minds were like sponges. Without fear, we asked whatever question came to mind. We kept asking and asking until our weary parents ended the interrogation by saying, "Because I said so." At some point in our lives, we learned to keep our curiosity to ourselves and be quiet. Could it be that our guardians silenced us because they didn't have the answers? In His Word, God tells us to ask for wisdom. He says, "Ask and you shall receive." I truly believe that He enjoys the dialogue and wants to share secrets with us. I originally titled this book 101 Questions to Ask Jesus When I Get to Heaven, but probably won't, because when I see Him, I won't care. That was the original title. In that little book, that little book I told you about, that was the title.
I love it.
Oh, indeed.
That would have been the whole front cover. Like.
It's just because the words just kept going. But anyway, it says, "Indeed, none of this will matter when I see Him face to face. Either I will understand or just won't care anymore." I laughed about this, then decided to crop the title to declutter the cover.
Well, I love it.
I will begin with the bonus question. I took this photo and I just went over that with you about the lights in the sky, so I won't read that. Okay, I'll skip.
We have to leave some so that they go by your book.
Something to read.
Yeah.
So I'm going to skip that little story, and then I'm going to go to the end of this, if that's okay.
Yeah.
The questions listed in this book are my hot list. I encourage you to think, discuss, and research. Everything we claim to know, someone told us. Parents, teachers, professors, pastors, employers, and friends speak into our lives, and we choose to believe. But there comes a time in everyone's life when we must seek to confirm what we've learned about ourselves, people on the earth, our faith, and our worldviews. When truth enlightens us, we can live out the appropriate response to its call from on high.
I want to clap.
Oh,
That's awesome. That's so great. Well, I love that. And I feel like it's just a really great way to open up this book so that people kind of understand, like, these aren't just your questions. These are everybody's questions. Like, everybody has, a right to put value in their own questions that they have, and to really seek the truth, and, and to seek the Lord, really.
Yes, and that's the bottom line, seeking the truth,
Yeah. All right. Well, cut for relocation.
Okay.
And thanks for bearing with me while I was dodging a bee at the beginning and continuing to roll.
The bee. I guess he decided he wanted to try to get in the video, but then he decided we weren't sweet enough for him, so he took off.
Yeah, now he's over by the tree I was going to move to. So we'll see what happens. So right now we are in Fuquay Marina still. Mm-hmm. We are at the Fuquay Mineral Springs, I think it's called. So it's this really beautiful park. I'll kind of like pan around. Really beautiful park right in the middle of Fuquay Marina. There's a stream that kind of runs through it. Mm-hmm. And I was just reading on the sign, as were you, I think, that this was kind of where the town of Fuquay kind of was founded. It has a mineral spring that runs through it, and so people would actually come here for the healing powers. Wow. So we can kind of like walk as we talk.
The healing powers.
The healing powers, yes.
Like what, the Pool of Shalom or something?
I feel like that would be in my 101 questions, because I don't know that.
What is that? There's some pool in the Bible where people would go and the angels would trouble them. And they would go once a year to go dip in that pool for healing. Okay. I can't remember exactly what it's called. But
that's, I mean, I feel like that sounds like this was described, right? Because they were talking about the healing powers of the waters. Mm-hmm. I guess the guy who owned it was a farmer and found the spring, and so people started coming to it. So anyway, that's where we are right now. And why don't we sit down? Well, no, this isn't pretty enough. We'll find a bench that's pretty and has a nice background, but pretty one.
Oh, there's a picnic bench.
There we go. So
this is a nice park, though. It's
very
nice.
Yeah. So we are going to continue our questioning of Beverly's questions with jumping to, I don't have the chapter right in front of me, but it is the Christian lifestyle. So it's her chapter on the Christian lifestyle. And actually, I love a lot of the questions. Here's a bench. We can sit here.
Okay.
So there are a lot of questions in this chapter that I think a lot of Christians have, and a lot of people that are maybe believers and who have maybe walked away from the Lord or had some trouble. Let's stabilize this. So I think the question that really stood out to me was number 28. Why do Christians use the cross as a holy symbol when the Romans used it to torture and kill you? And it was funny. I had to avoid the urge to like feel like you had the answer when I was reading these questions. I know that's like sounds so funny.
Please don't think I wrote these questions because I had the answer.
But it's kind of like
no.
It's kind of like, sorry, this one's gonna be a little bumpy, but hey, we'll go with it, right? But it was kind of like you kind of want to know like, oh, that's a great question. Like, what are your thoughts? And I think that kind of it sparked like the conversation just in my own mind. But I love that question because I've often wondered, like, why do we use the cross? Like, why don't we use, another symbol, like any, I guess there's so many symbols, I think, that are in the Bible that would connect us more to our Savior than a cross. I feel like the cross is like the last thing that we want to really think about.
Yeah, it's almost like reliving the pain over and over. Let's relive the pain. And there's something that the Apostle Paul said, like, should grace abound? How does he say? Should we continue in sin so that grace can abound? Something like that. I know for you scholars, you're saying you're not quoting that correctly.
It's okay. You can comment like wherever this is posted with that scripture, right?
Yeah. I'm not your pastor. I'm just your friend Beverly. Okay.
Asking questions.
Yes,
right?
Asking questions. Absolutely. But he says something like, shall we? He said, what then? Shall we continue in sin so that grace can abound? God forbid. And that's what I think about when I think about the symbol of the cross. It's like the cross is where Jesus paid for our sin. So do we need to just keep, it's like, so we just keep sinning and we have to keep getting the cross to remind us that he's forgiven us? I don't know. It's just it's a big question in my mind because it's not a positive symbol. Yeah.
And it made me kind of wonder, I know Moses hung a snake around a cross so that all his people that looked upon that cross would then be healed. So is that a reason? Is the cross this symbol of faith and healing, salvation? Because my whole life I've believed that the cross was Jesus died on the cross for us, and then we use that symbol. But yeah, so you see how these questions get sparked, these conversations. And I think one of the cool things about how this happens, and sorry, we're in the middle of downtown Fuquay Varina, so you're just going to hear lots of crazy noises and just,
and this,
part of
we don't have anywhere to prop this camera.
It's fine, right? It's part of the fun of what we're doing here, right?
Yeah.
It's an adventure.
Yep.
But my point, to kind of stopping on that question was, I think it's a big one, and I feel like a lot of the questions that you touched on in your book, a lot of people have a lot of feelings about and things to say about, and that's kind of the beauty of it, right? Because you sit in like a small group setting with other believers, or with just like friends that you like to have kind of deep conversations with, and you get to have these really great conversations. And so your book to me came across as kind of like somewhat of like a guide for a guide for small group questions, or just like a facilitating type of a book for people. And but
that's what I'm hoping for.
Yeah,
I really tried to be careful not to lead people directly anywhere. Just to lead you into my own mind, like this is what is confusing, disturbing, and questionable to me, but not to try to say, and this is the answer, because I'm going to tell you right now, if you read anything and you think that I wrote that because I have the answer, then you're wrong, because the answers will come from above. And at the time when God wants us to have it. And, but back to that question about the cross being a symbol for Christianity. Likened to that question, it's like some people they wear a cross, they call it a crucifix, which is also such a negative word, and some wear the cross without anything on it, and some wear it with the Savior nailed to the cross. And I'm thinking, why would you want to wear a dead body nailed to a cross around your neck or anywhere on your person? It's like, Jesus is alive. He's not
risen.
Dead anymore.
Yeah.
He's not dead. He's not on the cross. That's over. It's done. It's finished. And he said that. It is finished.
Right.
So if it's finished, why is he still nailed to the cross for some people? And so those kind of things just really make me go,
yeah.
What are we doing right here?
Yeah. And I think something that I love about the encouraging people to have questions is the fact that, I feel like not enough people have had questions, and have felt like their questions had value, and that people everybody wants to ask questions and talk through questions. And I think at a certain point it feels like it wasn't okay to ask questions. You don't want to offend people. And you even have a chapter in here, I think it might have been in the 2020 section, where you talk about our country's racial inequality and things like that. And that really helped me as somebody who was not a person of color to try to read into the mind of somebody who is asking these questions, we're not going to give you all the questions. We're not going to read all these questions to you, but I encourage you all to get this book, because there are some really great questions in here that I think can spark more questions, and your own personal questions. One of the things that I want to touch on, I'm going to actually pause and reposition this camera for. So we will take a quick break and we'll come back. So we touched for just a second on the 2020 issues a moment ago, and I didn't want to just gloss past it, because I felt like you, in chapter 8, the title is Time Will Tell. Again, you have to buy the book. We're just giving you little snippets and tidbits here, but I wanted to talk to you about this because I felt that it was important, and you covered it really well in chapter 8. And so I just wanted to kind of ask the question. So in chapter 8, this isn't actually one of the questions, but you talked a little bit about the racial inequality in our country. And in 2020, I think that's where we all became aware of what was happening, specifically to people of color in our country. And so you mentioned the USA. I'm just going to get this little part away of your book. Is that okay? Okay. The USA has yet to address the age-old injustice that Floyd's death rekindled in the country. And so as I was reading through this, I felt like I didn't know what specifically I wanted to cover about this chapter, but I felt like it was important to stop here. And so I just wanted to hear your thoughts of what kind of moved you to write just the chapter. So anything that you wanted to touch on, if there was anything that that you feel like in these questions, your 101 questions to ask Jesus, that people will connect with, or something that just kind of inspired you in this chapter to kind of touch on, that would benefit your reader, or spark conversation, just kind of wanted to give you the opportunity to maybe talk a little bit about that.
Well, first of all, I've lived through quite a few things in the USA as a Black woman. I've seen a lot that we can't get into here because it would be too long. I mean, when it comes to race relations and all of the things that happen in our country. But the reason that I wrote about this in this book, honestly, is because when George Floyd was killed, and the way he was killed, and all of the unrest that it caused, and all of the news reporting and everything that happened, there was a lot of conversations among people that I know, people that I call my friends, I have friends that are of every nationality, which you can pretty well guess because you're my friend. And I don't think of people based on anything else except whether or not we connect as individual people. I mean, I won't say I don't see color because I think that's an idiotic thing to say because, that's just dumb. But
because we have eyeballs, right?
Of course I see color. I see your color. But mostly you become my friend because we have some kind of connection, music or, worldview, whatever. But back to the reason, I wrote that because as conversations were going around and people were posting things on Facebook about their opinions about what happened to George Floyd and this and that, I was really cut to the heart at some of the things people had to say. And some of those people, like I said, were people who I call my Christian friends. And I was shocked at their viewpoint. I mean, I'm going to say shocked, but probably more than shocked, I was hurt by their viewpoint. And I felt like I can get on Facebook and I can just write a whole bunch of stuff and just stir it up too, or I can step back and write about it. Just write about it in a moment in time and take a snapshot of it.
Right.
Because I feel that not just about my feelings, but this is one thing I believe I know from my heart. God sees and knows everything to the minutest detail. He knows what's in everyone's heart. So it doesn't do any good for me to try to slam my opinions on you and tell you, no, you're wrong, and wah, and you need to see it. That's not
and just
productive.
Jump into that, right?
That's not productive. No. I just feel that God knows everything, and He is going to be the one who avenges anyone who is wronged. He is going to take care of it. It may not be done the way we see it, but God will. He said, vengeance is mine and I shall repay. And so when I look at the issues, and I remember trying to have a conversation on Facebook, responding to an individual who was very outspoken about, the race relations and the riots and the this and the that. And when I tried to explain from a cultural standpoint of why we, as Black people, why there is such a struggle in our communities, I was shocked at the response and the lack of sensitivity. And so I withdrew myself from that conversation because I was like, I will not let my heart be shredded because this person has a lack of understanding of what a Black person lives through every single day of their lives. So that's really why I kind of wrote that in there as a marker for people to stop and consider. And I really feel like I just want to say here that as Christians, we need to stop and consider our walk with Christ. There is nobody on the planet who is not important. Everyone on this planet is important to God.
That's right.
And so therefore, it is hurtful and abusive to say some of the things that people say, like someone deserved it or they were this or that. I mean, that's abusive. It's abusive. And so I just want people to stop and consider, especially if they call themselves a Christian. You say you connect with Christ, and you connect with Christ, but you believe that it's okay for a man to just be killed on the street in broad daylight in front of people's video cameras, and that's okay. That's not okay.
When there's complete evidence of
there's just not okay. And that's not the first time it happened. The reason it went worldwide is because that has happened over and over and over and over again. When will it stop? And so that's kind of how I feel about that. I like I said, once again, I don't have the answers. I just know how, I don't know George Floyd personally. He's not like my brother, my uncle, my distant cousin. But he is a distant relative because we're both Black people living in this country. We do have a connection in that way. And it could have just as easily have been me or my brother or my uncle killed in the street like that. So it hurts me to the heart for people to take a very negative position on it and care more about the looting or their business being shut down than they do for this man's life being taken on the street like that.
Yeah. And we have to stand up for each other, right? I mean, if we see that happening and it's not even, when I read that, for me, because my background is different, right? So when I read that, it was more like, we're all people, and if any of us were in danger and or facing fear and danger on a daily basis, like, how should we respond to that? How should we stand up for each other? And how would I, if my circumstances were different, how would I want to be? You know, it's like we're all together in this world, yet we find ways to separate ourselves and, you know, to find the differences and not the commonalities. But we're all people, and it's just so I'm glad that you stopped on it. And this chapter isn't
just about that.
Focused just on that, right? You talk about a lot of things. You talk about 3 firsts that happened in our country this year. You know, the voters who stormed the Capitol. You talk about you know, just, well, I'm not going to give it all away,
all
but
those things.
It's just a lot of things that happened in 2020,
just
right?
Just about regarding George Floyd and about all the looting and the things the unrest that happened after George Floyd was killed. It's like, compare people's mindset to that and people's mindset to people storming the Capitol. Yeah. I mean, it's like, except for a couple people were actually killed in that incident storming the Capitol. But I've heard commentators say over and over, if that had been the Black Lives Matter group storming the Capitol, you would have seen just a slaughter on the lawn. They would have just been shot down. And I believe that's true. Because if you can just put your knee on the neck of a man and no one does anything, and they just have to take you to court to be able to say, you just killed someone, then how much more with people running and scaling the wall, black people. If black people scale the wall of the Capitol building, a whole lot of them would have been plowed down with guns. I truly believe that's true. And I've heard several commentators say the same. So we have a gross inequity in this country that is, it needs to change. But I honestly feel that the only one who can change it now, because it's gotten so bad, is God himself. Jesus Christ. That's why we're asking him these questions. Like, Lord, there's a part of a song that I wrote that says, when will you come to set things right, end deceit and cancel lies? Lord, I wait for you. He's the only one who has the answers. Yeah. And I feel like 2020, so many people are still processing through what happened in 2020, and I think a lot of eyes were opened, and but that's exactly what I feel this book kind of helps with, is like helps in processing and asking questions and like coming up with your own questions. This is the beauty of being outside, right? Where we're being harassed by bugs. But we had an ant a second ago and a bumblebee in the last one. So you guys are getting all the fun stuff. We're back, day 2. We have changed a little bit of our look today, so don't worry, you're not crazy. This is day 2 of filming our very special interview with Beverly Rivers, who has written her book 101 Questions to Ask Jesus that we've been talking about. And so we hope that in this conclusion video that we can kind of share just a couple more topics that will help you to want to make sure you snag your copy of this book. And we just have a couple more things that we were going to touch on, and we're just really excited to tell you a little bit more about this book and where you can get it and kind of all those fun things. So we've talked about a few topics so far. We've talked about some of the questions in the book. We've talked about some of the 2020 chaos that happened in our world, and some of the
the truth that came out through that.
Right.
And so I'm really glad we got to cover that. And there were just a couple more things that I wanted to make sure that we covered before the end of this interview. So I could not help but just like be glued to the page when you were talking in your book about some of your testimonies.
Right.
And actually the testimonies started out as questions throughout the book, and they were honestly questions where I read it and I thought, I have to know more.
Mm-hmm.
And then I realized you had included in the appendix A, I believe it was, you included the full testemony, which
Mm-hmm.
just I was so excited about, because I was about ready to call you and just say, can you tell
what
me
are you talking about?
Can you tell me about this? So without giving away too much, I wanted to maybe just touch on like one of the testimonies.
Mm-hmm.
I certainly want to make sure that you all get the book to hear kind of the whole story, but you've just lived a really amazing life, and God has just proven himself so faithful in your life.
Yes,
and it's so apparent just by reading some of these testimonies. And like I said, I was glued to the page. So I wonder if you might share, maybe the testimony, and not the whole thing, but just kind of a brief maybe snippet of the one-armed soldier.
The one-armed man.
Mm-hmm.
Well, I think that testimony, and I didn't really connect the dots until after the book was written, that it has an impact on what was happening in 2020. It has an echo effect of what's happening in 2020, because that testimony happened when I was 10 years old. And when I was 10 years old, it was the same year that Martin Luther King died, was killed, and also the Kennedy assassination. And that was a very crazy time in American history. That whole year was crazy, and lots of unrest. And 2020 kind of echoes the same and similar unrest for the same reasons, meaning we haven't fixed this problem. We haven't gotten over it yet. But that testimony just talks about an incident that happened to me in the midst of all of that turmoil and all of that unrest racially and politically, and still God found a way to get that little 10-year-old girl through a very, what could have been an awful outcome. I don't want to really tell that story. I want them to read it, because that outcome, I could have been dead. Based on that story, I really shouldn't even be here to tell the story or even write a book. But God in his grace and mercy, and it teaches me that God has his eye on every single one of us. And if you are in this world for a purpose, he is going to protect you until his purpose is completed. And that's how I feel. That's why I wrote that testimony in there, because in a lot of ways it doesn't even make sense to me how he brought me through that. And through so many other things to still be here to tell the story. So so a 10-year-old girl got lost, but God had his hand on me, and he made sure I got where I was supposed to go. That's what I want to say about it. I want them to read the story.
I mean, it's really powerful. Just being able to have read that myself, that was very, very powerful. And you share more than one very powerful testimony, where, I mean, I read it and just thought, this is one person who's experienced these things, and and just God's faithfulness has just been so apparent through your life. And not many people have these types of testimonies, but it also sparked in me a desire to kind of like think back at God's faithfulness in my own life, because I thought, you took the time to write these things down, probably A, because you were writing a book in this case, but also B, because you had written this somewhere already. You had written this as a question, but you had remembered these memories as important key moments in your life, turning points in faith, maybe. I mean, just really special moments in your life where God just was there and protected you. So I really encourage you to read the book, and not just read Beverly's experience in these testimonies, but even thinking, it helps us to think back in our own lives,
right,
to see God's faithfulness in our own lives and realize, okay, you know, these things aren't just coincidence, like that, what happened.
Right. I believe that, you know, God is a miracle making God. Not just I believe that, but it's just the truth. He does miracles every single day in all of our lives. But I think that sometimes we are so focused on other things, we don't really see what God is doing and how he caused us to dodge a bullet, how he caused a bill to be paid miraculously when we had no idea how that was going to happen, how he caused us to meet the right person in our lives right at the right time. And we, you know, we need to get back to giving God the glory for everything he does. He is the master orchestrator of life. And he deserves to be praised and honored for what he does. And it's like when I look back at my life and all of the ways that God you know, just snatched me out of disaster, out of harm's way, you know, I think two things. One is, why me and not other people? Because other people actually got waylaid by that disaster. They actually had to go through the whole thing and be devastated by the challenge that came into their life. However, when that same incident was presented in my life, God saw fit to cover me or remove me or protect me. And sometimes I ask God, why did you protect me and not this person? You know, and it makes me feel that it's because he's preserving me for a purpose. Not because I was any better than the other one or he loves me more than the other one, but because he put me in this world to do a certain thing. And until that certain thing is done, I cannot be removed from his tapestry, from his orchestration. And that's how I see it, you know. Because I don't want anyone to read my testimonies and say, well, I was presented with that, but then the monster got me. You know, and I don't want them to feel like it's because Beverly was loved more than you. I don't believe that's it. I believe that God knows what it's going to take for us to come all the way to him. For some it takes more, for some it takes less, and God knows why he put us in this earth. And until we are finished with our assignment, you know, just like that scripture says that he will bear you up on angels' wings so that you don't dash your foot against a stone. You know, it's like until my work is done, I'm protected. When my work is done, or if I decide I'm going to step out of God's will, well then, you know, the umbrella, I just moved out from under the umbrella, the protection.
And you know, and I fully believe too that even when our purpose is complete, you know, maybe he does take us home, but he takes us home in a way that is still a blessing to us, to those around us, whether it's, you know, the kind of exit we would hope for, or whether it's the kind that we wouldn't hope for. You know, I just have so much faith that he makes himself so real to us in that moment that, you know, no matter what it looks like from the outside, that he's there with us, you know, whether we're young or whether we're old when it happens. You know? Well, that's really beautiful, and I think that that's kind of the hope for this book too, right? That people just kind of come into their own spiritual connection with the Lord and seek him, ask him questions, and when they have those moments, well, Beverly was blessed in that moment, but this happened to me, or this happened to somebody that I love, like maybe that's a question that you'll write down, right? Maybe that's something that you'll write your own 101 questions to ask Jesus when you meet him. You know, you almost named it 101 questions to ask Jesus when I meet him, but it probably won't matter.
Because when I see him, it won't matter.
And
like, I won't care.
And so my thought is like, more than likely we'll meet him and we won't care, and it'll, you know, it'll be, you know, our reality will be so different that it won't, you know, matter maybe in our hearts anymore. But, you know, this is such a beautiful exercise in continuing to seek him. And that's my take, that, you know, everybody I think will have their own kind of takeaway. So where can we buy your book?
Well, you will find it on Amazon. or you can order it directly from my website, if you want to just get it directly from me.
Okay.
And then I can ship it to whomever would like to buy that.
Okay. I'll probably post that here probably with the video.
Yes. It's just breakfreewriter.com.
Okay.
www.breakfreewriter.com.
Breakfreewriter.com.
Yeah.
Got it.
And that's where you can connect with me at any time. If you want to send a message, you have a question, you want me to call and chat or something.
And she responds. So
yeah,
take her up on it.
So yeah, I would definitely do that. I would be excited for someone to say, hey, let's chat about such and such.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, I know I met you as my vocal coach, so I know that you are a woman of many talents. She's an amazing vocalist, worshiper. You are the founder of a nonprofit organization. I just think you have such an amazing list of credentials.
Thank you.
But I want to know what's next for you. What are you working on?
Well, since you plugged my nonprofit organization, I would be amiss not to tell you what that is, just in case you would like to be a part of it, or you would like to be a sponsor for it or a donor for it. So that would be Break Free Christian Performers Association.
Okay.
Okay, and you'll find that on the internet at bcpainc.org.
All right.
Yeah. So you asked what's next?
Yes.
Well, what's next? Well, right now I'm kind of I'm entering into retirement.
Okay.
Retirement, not from any of the artistic things that I do, but retiring from having to, have a ongoing 9-to-5 type of a job. I still work, but I work as a consultant.
Okay.
And so I'm doing that because I really want to do more writing, to do more music. I have a binder of songs that I've been writing for the last 20 years, and there's probably at least 30 unpublished songs in that binder.
Wow.
And I would like for the world to hear some of the songs I've written. I may or may not be able to record them all, and maybe they're not all for me to record. There may be some songs in there that are for other artists that might be looking for material.
Sure.
But maybe I can at least put them in a book so that people can see all the lyrics. Oh, I'm attracted to this,
Beverly's catalog.
Yeah, that might be fun to do.
Yeah.
But recently I did finish two new songs that I've recorded. And
I got to hear one.
and they should be published soon. And they're different from what I've done before.
Okay.
Because they're not your typical, worship music, and they're not your typical outreach music either. But they are songs that also were put on my heart based on the things that have been happening in 2020 and just a culmination of things. So those two songs are done, and the music producer who helped me with that is actually in Ghana.
Wow.
Yeah, he is actually the nephew of someone I met when I was in Japan, one of the other missionaries, and I actually randomly was asking him on Facebook, do you know anyone who is a music producer who could give me sort of some good African drum music? I have this song that I want to work on. He goes, yeah, I actually do. My nephew is Dave the Music Box.
That's
you need
cool.
to call him. So I was like, whoa, okay, really? And so hi Dave, thank you for you're such a blessing to me. So Dave did this music. He listened to what I was trying to do, and he kind of latched onto it, and he created music that's pretty dynamic. So I'm excited about that.
Okay.
So we did two songs together, and I'm hoping to do more work with him. He said, I think it would work better if you actually came to Ghana and was in the studio with the musicians. There's a certain chemistry or vibe or thing that happens when you're actually in the space rather than me trying to voice over what he did.
Yeah.
And so that's what I hope to do. If God makes
awesome.
a way for me to do that, I would love to do that, because I believe that Dave really gets what I'm trying to do musically. Yeah.
That is so cool. So when these are released, where will we be able to find them?
You'll probably be able to get that on Amazon too.
Okay.
But it started at my website, and then you can triage from there, because the music service that where I'm going to now sell my music from, the name of it dropped out of my head.
Don't worry, all those things will be in the slides that we pop up to you throughout. I think
it's called DistroKid or something.
Okay.
But all of it is not
right.
there yet, but it will be there. All of the music will be available there, but if you go to my website, you'll know exactly where to go.
Okay, awesome. Well, I think that concludes our interview, and I just want you to know it is such a blessing to be your friend. It's such a blessing that I got to be among the first to read your book. I'm going to hold it up one last time for just one last plug. So I encourage you to go get this book. It is an amazing resource for small groups, for women's groups, for really any small group. I think it starts great conversations. But even just kind of in your downtime through COVID or quarantine or anything like that, if you're looking for something to read, 101 Questions to Ask Jesus by Beverly Rivers.
Thank you so much, Liz. I would be amiss to not say this before we conclude, and that is, when I told you I'd written a book, you ordered it right away, you started reading it, and then you said, how are you going to promote this? And I was like, I don't know, I'm an artist, I just do art stuff. I have no idea. And you're like, well, it would be great if we could just get, we could interview you. And you had all these creative ideas that came bursting out. And I was like, whoa, okay, well, if you decide you want to do that, I'm down. And so we were going to do this on a Zoom, right?
Yeah.
And but then it got to be so complicated, because those of you who know me, I am just like the internet nerd. I am not the one to know all these gadgets and okay, let's do that. I'm just not good at it, and I can admit that. So as we were talking, you said, well, you're getting your friend John involved, and he can help us piece it together.
John.
Thank you, John. And I was like, okay, my brain is hurting already. I'm just gonna be get this, download this. I was like, no. And so then just out of the blue, after we had that last conversation about gadgets and apps and stuff,
and not knowing what we were doing,
and not knowing how this is going to work, I just said, okay, you're getting ready to get on the road in the RV. How about you just drive down there? So I decided to send you a message and say, what if I just came to your house? And you're like,
yes, are you kidding?
So that's how I find myself here in North Carolina.
So awesome.
I enjoyed the drive down. I enjoyed being here. Thank you for hosting me.
Oh, happy to host you.
I'm so blessed, and I'm so blessed that you're willing to help me promote the book too.
I would hug you, but I don't know for COVID hugging.
Well, we're sitting here without masks. We're probably
I know
already,
that's true. We'll just do side hugs.
Yeah, just do it. Yeah.
Hopefully after this we will not get COVID because of that one hug that we broke down for.
No.
Well,
I don't think so.
You are a blessing to all who know you. I know this book is going to go far and wide. So prayers for that Ghana trip. That would be amazing. Yeah. And thank you to you all who joined us for this interview and just stuck it out as we changed locations and just worked through sound stuff and construction work that started during our interviews. But you know what?
And bumblebees.
And bumblebees, carpenter bees in North Carolina, and and gnats and whatever chose to make an appearance. So
pollen showers.
Pollen, yes. Now we're in the pollination of the great pollinating of 2021. So, well, thank you all for joining us. This has been so much fun. We hope that you will enjoy this book as much as I did, and as much as Beverly enjoyed writing it. So thank you all, and blessings to you, and we just appreciate your time.
Thank you.